Captain stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Promise, watching the stars blur past the viewing screen. His heart raced with excitement. After decades of development, humanity had finally cracked faster-than-light travel. Now, on this cold morning in 2347, his ship carried the hopes of 8 billion people into the unknown reaches of space. "Captain, we're detecting multiple energy signatures ahead," said the sensor officer, her voice tight with tension. Leaned forward. "Can you identify them?" "Negative, sir. They're unlike anything in our database." Before could respond, 5 massive vessels materialized around them. They were enormous, dwarfing the Horizon's Promise like whales surrounding a minnow. Their hulls gleamed with an otherworldly metal that seemed to shift colors in the starlight. "This is Captain of Earth, representing humanity. We come in peace," he broadcast on all frequencies. A response came immediately, but the tone made blood run cold. The alien voice dripped with contempt, speaking in perfect English through their translation system. "Peace? How quaint. You primitives have stumbled into territory. Power down your pathetic vessel and prepare to be boarded." Dr. Park, the ship's chief, stepped beside. "Captain, we should comply. We don't know what we're dealing with." Nodded grimly. He had no choice. Within minutes, alien soldiers materialized on his bridge through some kind of teleportation technology. They were tall, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms, wearing armor that hummed with power. Their leader looked at the human crew with something like amusement. "So this is humanity," the alien said, his voice a deep rumble. "I am commander of the Dominion. You are now in violation of Galactic Council law by operating an FTL vessel without authorization." "We didn't know," said quickly. "We only just developed this technology. We meant no offense." Laughed a harsh barking sound. "Ignorance is no excuse. Your species will be brought before the Council." He gestured to his soldiers. "Take samples of their technology. I want to see what these primitives consider advanced." Watched helplessly as the aliens examined his ship systems. They laughed openly at the displays, mocking the human engineering. One soldier picked up a data pad and tossed it aside dismissively. "This is what they use for computation. My children's toys are more sophisticated." The humiliation burned in his chest, but he kept his face neutral. He was a military officer. He knew when he was outmatched. They escorted the Horizon's Promise to a massive space station orbiting a purple gas giant. There, and were brought before representatives of the Galactic Council. The chamber was vast, with dozens of alien species seated in a circular arrangement. 3 races sat on elevated platforms, clearly the dominant powers. An alien that looked like a floating jellyfish with crystalline appendages spoke first. "We are the Ashen Collective. You stand before the Galactic Council, which has governed this galaxy for 10,000 years. A reptilian creature with golden scales added, "I represent the Federation. Your species has been observed entering our space with crude FTL technology." Stepped forward bravely. "We seek only friendship and knowledge. Earth wishes to join the galactic community as equals." The chamber erupted in what could only be described as laughter. The sound echoed from all sides, a chorus of alien amusement at the humans' audacity. Standing beside them spoke to the council. "As you can see, they are ignorant of their place. They actually believe they could be equals." The jellyfish-like Ashen representative's voice turned cold. "Humanity, you are membership in the Galactic Council. Your species lacks the maturity, technology, and intelligence required. You will accept protectorate status under supervision." Felt his fists clench. "And if we refuse?" All laughter stopped. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Placed one of his 4 hands on shoulder, squeezing hard enough to hurt. "Then your world will be subjugated by force. Your cities will burn. Your people will serve in labor camps on our colony worlds. You have one choice, primitive. Submit willingly or submit in chains." Grabbed's arm, her eyes pleading with him to stay calm. He took a deep breath and forced himself to nod. The golden reptilian spoke again, outlining the terms. Humanity would be confined to their home solar system. They would pay annual tribute in raw materials and agricultural products. No human vessels could operate beyond the orbit of Pluto without permission. Human scientists would be monitored to ensure they developed no weapons that could threaten the Council. "Do you accept these terms?" the Ashen asked. His voice was barely above a whisper. "We accept." Back on Earth, Admiral listened to his report with a stone face. The Admiral was a veteran of Earth's unification wars, a man who had seen humanity at its worst and fought to make it better. Now, all that progress seemed meaningless. "They treated us like children," said, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. "No, worse than children. Like insects they were gracious enough not to step on." Pulled up holographic displays of the alien technology they had witnessed. "Admiral, they're centuries ahead of us maybe. Their smallest patrol ship could destroy our entire fleet." Lee, the young engineer who had designed humanity's FTL drive, studied the data with intense focus. She had been silent since the delegation returned, but now she spoke up. "They're arrogant," she said quietly. Raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "Their technology is incredible, yes, but they're so convinced of their superiority that they didn't even try to hide it from us. I saw their shield harmonics, their power signatures, their propulsion systems. They let me see because they think we're too stupid to understand what we're looking at." A thin smile crossed the Admiral's face. "And are we?" "Return the smile. Give me 5 years." The meeting ended with a heavy decision. Earth would accept the humiliating terms publicly. They would pay tribute and bow their heads, but in secret they would prepare. They would study. They would learn everything they could about their new masters. As left the command center, he paused at a window overlooking Earth. The blue planet had never looked more beautiful or more vulnerable. He thought about the alien soldiers laughing at human technology, calling their life's work toys. "Laugh while you can," he whispered to the stars. "We're down, but we're not broken, and humanity has a long memory." Somewhere in the darkness of space, the fleet patrolled humanity's borders, confident in their dominance. They had no idea that they had just made a terrible mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and that would prove to be their downfall. But that reckoning was still years away. For now, Earth submitted, and the galaxy's ancient powers continued their rule, secure in their arrogance. 5 years had crawled by like a slow poison spreading through humanity's veins. Every month, cargo ships arrived at Earth to collect their tribute. Every month, humans watched their resources disappear into alien holds. Every month, the resentment grew deeper. Nam crouched in the shadows of an abandoned factory on the dark side of the moon. Around him, 20 men and women waited in silence, their faces hard with determination. Had been a special forces operative before first contact. Now he led something more important, Earth's resistance movement. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "In 3 weeks, they are transferring 50 human workers to their mining colony in the system. We have one chance to intercept the transport." A young woman raised her hand. "Sir, their shields are impenetrable. How can we possibly?" "That's where you're wrong," came a new voice. Lee stepped into the dim light carrying a data tablet. The brilliant engineer looked tired with dark circles under her eyes, but her smile was triumphant. "I've found something. Their shields aren't perfect." Gestured for her to continue. Pulled up a holographic display. "The shields operate on a harmonic frequency. They've used the same technology for thousands of years, never updating it because nothing has ever threatened them. But there's a resonance cascade vulnerability. If we hit them with precisely tuned pulses, we can make their shields collapse on themselves." "Can we build weapons that do that?" asked. "Already done. I've been working in Admiral's secret facility in the belt." Weil and planned in the shadows, sat in a bunker deep beneath Seoul, surrounded by computer screens displaying alien communications. She was a cryptographer, one of the best Earth had ever produced. For 5 years, she had been intercepting and decoding transmissions. What she discovered made her blood boil. The aliens didn't just despise humans. They despised dozens of other species they had conquered over the. In their private communications, the Ashen and leaders spoke of their subject races with casual cruelty. They referred to them as resources, as tools, as things to be used and discarded. "Doctor, you need to see this," said, forwarding a file to the. Park read the translated communications in her office, her hands trembling. One message from an administrator described how they had executed an entire colony of a species called the for failing to meet production quotas. Another discussed breeding programs designed to make subject species more obedient. A third joked about a rebellion they had crushed, laughing about how the rebels had thought they had a chance. "They're monsters," whispered, "and they think they're superior because they have better weapons." She immediately contacted Song, a physicist who had been studying the biological differences between humans and the galactic species. What he had discovered gave humanity its first real hope. "Our brains are different," explained, showing brain scans. "The Ashen and all think in remarkably similar patterns. They're logical, methodical, predictable. They approach every problem the same way their ancestors did thousands of years ago." "And humans?" asked. "We're chaos incarnate," said with a grin. "We think laterally, we improvise. We see patterns they miss and make connections they can't. In a straight fight with known parameters, they win every time. But if we change the rules, if we fight unpredictably, we have an advantage they can't compensate for." The breakthrough gave Admiral the confidence to accelerate his secret project. In the cold darkness beyond Pluto, hidden from sensors, humans had been building a fleet. They were small ships, nothing like the massive alien cruisers, but they were designed with everything humanity had learned from studying their oppressors. Captain inspected one of the new vessels, the Defiance. It was sleek and fast, built for hit-and-run attacks rather than direct confrontation, had equipped it with her shield-disrupting weapons. His team had designed its tactical systems to emphasize creative problem-solving over rigid doctrine. "It's not about matching their strength," said to his new crew. "It's about being too unpredictable for them to counter." Then came the incident that changed everything. On a mining colony orbiting a red dwarf star, 50 human workers labored under brutal conditions. They extracted rare minerals from asteroids, working 18-hour shifts with minimal food and rest. The overseers treated them like machines, pushing them to their limits and beyond. One day, a human named's younger brother made a mistake. Exhausted after a 20-hour shift, he miscalculated a drilling trajectory. The error cost the 3 hours of production time. Commander, the same alien who had humiliated humanity 5 years earlier, decided to make an example. He ordered all 50 workers assembled in the colony's main bay. "This is what happens to inefficiency," announced. Then he executed all 50 humans, not just, but every single worker. He vented them into space and left their bodies floating among the asteroids as a warning. When news reached Earth, the planet's rage was nuclear. Received the message in the middle of a briefing. His younger brother, the gentle engineer who had never wanted to leave Earth, was dead, murdered for a simple mistake caused by exhaustion. Admiral found in the observation deck, staring at the stars with tears on his face. "I'm sorry," the Admiral said quietly. His voice was hollow. "Used to tell me that the stars were full of wonders. He dreamed about meeting aliens, learning from them, sharing knowledge. He thought contact would make us better." "He wasn't wrong," said, "just naive about who we'd meet first." Turned to face the Admiral. His grief had hardened into something cold and dangerous. "When do we strike back?" "Soon, but we need to be smart about this," has a plan. 3 days later, in an abandoned lunar base, Earth's leaders gathered for a secret meeting. Admiral and captain sat around a table covered with tactical displays. "We're done submitting," said flatly. "The question is not whether we fight, but how." Presented her intelligence. "I've identified 3 major supply depots within striking distance. They're complacent, barely guarded. They don't believe we would dare attack." Showed her weapons. "We have 30 ships equipped with shield disruptors, not enough for a war but enough to send a message." Outlined the tactical philosophy. "We don't fight their way. We use speed, surprise, and creativity. We hit them where they don't expect, when they don't expect, how they don't expect." Added the final piece. "And I've made contact with other oppressed species. They're watching us. If we succeed even a little, others might find courage to resist." Admiral looked at each person in turn. "This is a point of no return. Once we strike, there's no going back. They will respond with overwhelming force. Many of us will die." Stood up, his eyes blazing with determination. "My brother is dead because an alien wanted to prove a point. 50 good people are dead because we were too weak to protect them. I say we stop being weak." He slammed his fist on the table. "Humanity survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We climbed from caves to the stars. We didn't do that by accepting our place. We did it by refusing to quit, no matter how bad things got. These aliens think we're primitives. Let's show them what primitives can do when you push them too far." The room was silent for a moment, then started clapping, joined in. One by one, everyone in the room rose to their feet, applauding. "Then it's decided," Admiral said. "We go to war." Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. The fleet patrolled human space, confident and arrogant. They had no idea that in the shadows, humanity was preparing to remind the galaxy of a simple truth. It's not the size of the species in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the species. And humanity had plenty of fight left. The night before the attack, Shin couldn't sleep. She lay in her bunk aboard the stealth fighter Wraith, staring at the metal ceiling above her. Tomorrow, she would either become a hero or a footnote in humanity's extinction. There was no middle ground. "Can't sleep either?" asked a voice from the darkness. It was Bay, the military strategist who had designed their attack plan. "Too much adrenaline," admitted. "You sure this will work?" Pulled himself into a sitting position. "They have been using the same tactical doctrine for 5,000 years. They always position their supply depots in the same formation. They always patrol on predictable routes. They always assume their technology makes them invincible. And we're going to prove them wrong. We're going to hurt them, that's enough for now." Across the fleet, 29 other pilots prepared for the same mission. They were humanity's best, volunteers who knew they might not come home. Each ship carried shield-disrupting weapons and enough explosives to cripple a supply depot. On the flagship Defiance, Captain reviewed the mission parameters one final time. 3 targets: Supply Depot Gamma near the Barnard Star, Supply Depot Theta in the Wolf 359 system, and Supply Depot Omega orbiting a gas giant in the Sirius sector. All 3 strikes would occur simultaneously, making it impossible for them to respond to all of them at once. "All ships report ready," said Sora, his communications officer. She was young, barely 25, but she had proven herself invaluable during the planning stages. Her ability to coordinate complex operations would be crucial today. "Then let's remind the galaxy what humanity can do," said. "All ships jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." Space twisted and folded as 30 human ships vanished from their staging area and reappeared near their targets. Squadron materialized just outside the detection range of Supply Depot Gamma. The depot was massive, a floating warehouse the size of a small city, protected by shields and surrounded by automated defense platforms. "Stealth systems online," reported. "They don't see us." The human ships were coated with a material that absorbed sensor waves rather than reflecting them. It was technology the aliens had never bothered to develop because they had never needed to hide from anyone. Another advantage of arrogance. "All wings, begin your approach," commanded. "Remember, we hit fast and we hit hard. Don't give them time to adapt." Activated her fighters' engines, keeping them at minimum power to avoid detection. Around her, 9 other pilots did the same, ghosting toward the depot like sharks approaching prey. They closed to within weapons range without triggering a single alarm. "Target lock acquired," whispered, "firing in 3, 2, 1." 10 beams of concentrated energy lanced out from the human fighters, each one precisely tuned to the harmonic frequency had discovered. The beams struck the depot's shields and something beautiful happened. The shields flickered, wavered, then collapsed in a cascading failure that rippled across the entire structure. "Shields down," someone shouted. "Light them up." Missiles streaked through the void, slamming into the now defenseless depot. Explosions blossomed in the vacuum, tearing through storage bays and power systems. The depot shuddered and began to break apart, spilling supplies and equipment into space. "We've got incoming," another pilot called out. 3 patrol ships had detected the attack and were rushing to respond. "Scatter and evade," ordered. "Don't let them get a target lock." Here, theories proved their worth. The ships moved in precise, coordinated patterns, exactly as their tactical manuals prescribed. But her squadron didn't follow any manual. They twisted and spun through space in seemingly random patterns, breaking every rule of conventional space combat. They couldn't get a solid lock. Their targeting systems kept losing acquisition as the human ships performed maneuvers that made no tactical sense but were devastatingly effective. Meanwhile, the human fighters picked off the patrol ships one by one, exploiting their shield vulnerability with ruthless efficiency. In the Wolf 359 system, the second strike unfolded with similar success. In the Sirius sector, the third team destroyed their target and escaped with 0 casualties. Within the span of 30 minutes, humanity had struck 3 major blows against the Dominion. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session. The chamber that had once mocked humanity's pretensions now buzzed with shock and confusion. "How is this possible?" demanded the ashen representative, its crystalline appendages vibrating with agitation. "The humans accepted protectorate status. They were." Commander stood before the council, his 4 arms crossed in a gesture of barely controlled fury. "They attacked with technology we didn't know they possessed. Our shields failed. Our tactical systems couldn't track their movements. It's as if they were fighting a completely different kind of war." The representative's golden scales flashed with anger. "You assured us the humans were primitive. You said they posed no threat." "They shouldn't," insisted. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. By every logical measure, they should be incapable of military action against us." "And yet 3 of our supply depots are destroyed," the Ashen stated coldly. "Explain that." Had no answer. The truth was too humiliating to admit. Humanity had outsmarted them. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted across the planet. The strikes had been broadcast live through every human communication network. People danced in the streets, crying with joy and relief. For the first time in 5 years, they had hope. In the command center, Admiral watched the footage with grim satisfaction. "This is just the beginning. They'll respond with force." "Let them come," said. "We've proven they can be beaten. That's what matters." Sora was already working on her next task, broadcasting the footage beyond Earth's borders. Using communication channels had established with other oppressed species, she sent the message across the galaxy. The message was simple. If humanity could resist, so could others. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Dozens of species under the Council's boot sent messages of support. Some were cautious, others were jubilant, but all carried the same underlying theme: hope. For the first time in the galaxy's oppressed peoples saw a path to freedom. On a colony world, workers in a factory stopped their machines and refused to restart them. On an ashen mining station, slaves broke their chains and seized their overseers' weapons. On a dozen worlds across the galaxy, the whispers of rebellion began to grow into shouts. The response came 3 days later. A massive armada, 500 ships strong, jumped into the solar system. It was led by Grand Admiral X, this most decorated military commander. He had crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds. Now he would crush humanity's defiance. "This is Grand Admiral X to the primitives of Earth," he broadcast. "You have violated the terms of your protectorate status. You have destroyed council property and encouraged insurrection. Surrender immediately, or your world will be reduced to ash." On the Defiance's bridge, listened to the ultimatum with a cold smile. "Sara, send a reply. Tell him humanity doesn't surrender." "Sir, their fleet could sterilize our planet," a young officer said nervously. "They could," agreed, "but they won't. We have something they desperately need to preserve: their reputation. If they destroy Earth, they prove that force is their only answer. Every oppressed species in the galaxy will see them as the tyrants they are. They need to beat us in a way that looks legitimate." Nodded in agreement. "So they'll fight us directly, and when they do, we'll be ready." The human fleet, still small but growing, moved to defensive positions around Earth. Every ship was equipped with the shield disruptors. Every crew had trained in the unpredictable tactics that had proven so effective. As the Armada approached Mars, broadcast to his fleet, "They think we're about to die. They think this ends with humanity's submission. But I've learned something in the past 5 years. It's not about being stronger, it's about being tougher. And humans are the toughest damn species in this galaxy. Let's prove it." The Battle of Mars was about to begin, and the galaxy was watching. For the first time in recorded history, the galactic power's invincibility was in question, and that question mark was enough to change everything. The Battle of Mars lasted 14 hours and changed the course of galactic history. Grand Admiral X had approached the engagement with absolute confidence. His 500 ships represented overwhelming force. The humans had barely 50 vessels to defend their world. By every calculation, every historical precedent, every military doctrine in the database, this would be a quick and decisive victory. He was wrong. The human fleet didn't fight the way they expected. They didn't form battle lines or attempt to match the alien formation. Instead, they scattered like a school of fish, using Mars itself as cover, darting behind the planet's moons, exploiting every asteroid and piece of debris in the orbital space. "They're running," X observed with satisfaction. "Cowards, all ships pursuit formation delta. We'll hunt them down one by one." That was his first mistake. The moment his fleet broke formation to chase individual human ships, they became vulnerable. Captain had predicted this exact response. Now commanded. The human ships that had appeared to be fleeing suddenly reversed course. Working in coordinated groups of 3 and 4, they attacked the dispersed vessels from multiple angles simultaneously. Shield disruptors fired in perfect synchronization, causing cascading failures across entire wings of the enemy fleet. Young Minu, a tactical officer who had earned his position through brilliance rather than experience, had designed this strategy. He called it swarm tactics. Instead of treating space combat like a formal duel, the humans fought like wasps defending a nest, chaotic, aggressive, and impossible to predict. "Target their command ship," Minu called out from his station on the Defiance. "Force X to make a choice." 12 human vessels converged on the Admiral's flagship, their weapons blazing. X found himself in an impossible situation. If he maintained pursuit of the fleeing ships, his flagship would be destroyed. If he to protect himself, he would lose command cohesion. He chose to withdraw, and in that moment he lost the battle. The fleet, suddenly leaderless and confused, fell into disarray. Ships collided with each other trying to reform their lines. Communication channels filled with conflicting orders. And all the while, the human ships struck and faded, like ghosts in the darkness. When the battle finally ended, 70 ships were destroyed or crippled. The rest fled the system in disorder. Humanity lost 9 vessels and 200 brave souls, but they had won. Against all odds, against overwhelming force, they had won. The news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Sora made sure of it, broadcasting footage of the battle to every corner of known space. The message was clear. The galactic powers could be beaten. The council convened in a state of barely controlled panic. For the first time they faced a real threat to their authority. But instead of acknowledging the problem, they doubled down. The 3 empires must form an alliance, the Ashen representative declared. We will combine our forces and crush this rebellion once and for all. They agreed. If we allow the humans to succeed, every subject species will rise against us. This is an existential threat. Commander, humiliated by his failures, was relieved of duty. But before he left the council chamber, he said something that no one wanted to hear. Perhaps we should ask why they resist so fiercely. Perhaps we should question whether our rule has been just. The other council members looked at him like he had gone insane. The idea that they might be wrong was literally incomprehensible to them. They had ruled for so long that they believed their dominance was the natural order of the universe. Was escorted away, but his words lingered. While the aliens prepared their grand alliance, humanity used the breathing room to expand their resistance. A medical officer who had treated wounded soldiers during the Mars battle did something that shocked everyone. She treated wounded prisoners with the same care as human casualties. "They're our enemies," a nurse protested. "They're living beings who are hurt," replied calmly. "We don't become monsters to fight monsters." Her compassion had an unexpected effect. The prisoners, accustomed to brutal treatment from their own command structure, were stunned by human mercy. One soldier, a commander named, asked to speak with Admiral after his recovery. "Why?" asked, his 4 arms spread in a gesture of confusion. "Why treat us with kindness? We would have shown you no mercy." Studied the alien carefully. "Because that's the difference between us. You see enemies, we see potential allies." "I don't understand." "Then let me explain. Your people rule through fear. Ours leads through hope. Your way creates slaves. Our way creates partners." Leaned forward. "Tell me, Commander, do you believe in what your council does?" The question clearly disturbed the alien. His scales shifted color, a sign of distress. I am a soldier. I follow orders." "That's not an answer." Was silent for a long moment. Then quietly he said, "No, I don't believe in it, but what choice do I have?" "You always have a choice," said, "help us." And incredibly did. He provided intelligence on fleet movements, tactical doctrines, and strategic priorities. His defection shocked both sides and proved that even the enemy could be reached through understanding rather than hatred. The war intensified over the following months. The Ashen Collective launched a massive assault on Alpha, where humanity had established its first interstellar colony. Minu, now promoted to Fleet Tactical Coordinator, orchestrated a defensive strategy that became legendary. He allowed the Ashen Fleet to commit fully to the attack, drawing them deep into the system. Then, using a combination of hidden mines, long-range missile strikes, and a feint that convinced the enemy a second human fleet was arriving, he created a panic. The Ashen Fleet, thinking they were about to be trapped, attempted a hasty withdrawal. That's when Minu sprung his trap. The Second Fleet was a holographic projection created by his latest invention. But by the time the Ashen realized this, they had broken formation and were easy prey for the real human defenders. The entire Ashen expeditionary force was destroyed. Not a single ship escaped. On Earth, Nam's ground forces were liberating alien labor camps across the solar system. Each liberated camp revealed horrors. Beings from dozens of species worked to death, families separated, children taken for. The footage of these atrocities, broadcast by Sara, turned galactic opinion sharply against the Council. Species that had remained neutral began providing covert support to humanity. Others launched their own rebellions, inspired by human success. The galaxy was fracturing, and the ancient powers were losing control. In a secret meeting aboard the Defiance, explained the situation to the human leadership. The Council is dying, but they don't know it yet. Their empires are held together by fear, and fear is breaking down. But they will fight to the end rather than admit they were wrong. Park, who had been working tirelessly to build coalitions with other species, asked the crucial question: how do we end this without destroying everything? You offer them mercy, said. Show them the same compassion showed me. Give them a way out that preserves their dignity. After everything they've done, said, his voice hard, my brother is dead because of them. I know, said gently, and I cannot undo that, but if you become like them in your revenge, what will you have gained? Struggled with the question, standing nearby, placed a hand on his shoulder. Your brother would want us to be better than them, not equal to them. The captain closed his eyes and nodded slowly. You're right, we'll offer terms, but they have to be real terms, not the humiliation they gave us. Meanwhile, had developed something revolutionary, a weapon system based on principles the aliens had never conceived. It didn't rely on brute force but on prediction and adaptation. Using advanced AI trained on human tactical thinking, it could anticipate enemy movements and counter them before they happened. It's not about being stronger, she explained to Admiral. It's about being smarter in ways they can't match. The tide had turned. The galaxy's ancient powers, faced with rebellions on all sides and defeats they couldn't explain, began to crack. And at the center of it all stood humanity, the species they had dismissed as primitive, proving that true strength came not from dominance but from the courage to fight for something better. The end came not with a bang, but with a message. After 18 months of brutal conflict, the three empires of the Galactic Council sent a transmission to Earth. Admiral watched it alone in his quarters before calling the others. The alien faces on the screen looked tired, defeated. These were beings who had ruled for, and now they were begging for peace. Humanity, the representative began, his voice stripped of its former arrogance. We request an armistice. Terms can be negotiated. Called an emergency meeting. Captain, Dr. Park, Nam, Lee, Minyu, Shin, Sara, and Commander gathered around the conference table. Also present via hologram were representatives from 23 other species that had joined humanity's coalition. They want peace, said simply. The question is, what kind of peace? Spoke first, his voice carrying the weight of thousands of operations behind enemy lines. We could crush them completely. Their empires are fragmenting. Give us 6 more months and they'll collapse entirely. And how many will die in those 6 months? Asked quietly. How many humans? How many of our new allies? How many even of our enemies? Stared at the table, remembering his brother's death. The rage that had sustained him through countless battles had cooled into something more complicated. What do your people need? The commander, now a trusted advisor despite his former allegiance, considered carefully. They need to understand why they lost, not just militarily but philosophically. They need to see that their way was wrong. Then we don't just negotiate peace, said, her eyes bright with sudden insight. We negotiate a new system entirely, a real galactic assembly where every species has a voice, regardless of their technology level. Minyu pulled up a tactical display, but instead of showing fleet positions, it showed galactic governance structures. The Council's power came from centralized control, We build something distributed, democratic, impossible for any single species to dominate. The idea took shape through hours of debate. Humanity would not conquer the galaxy. Instead, they would transform it. The old council would be dissolved, replaced by an assembly with representation for all sentient species. War crimes would be prosecuted, not in revenge but in justice. Resources would be shared, not hoarded. Knowledge would be freely exchanged. It's idealistic, warned. Maybe too idealistic. Someone once told me, said, looking at, that hope is what separates us from them. If we abandon that hope now, what was the point of everything we fought for? The vote was unanimous. Humanity would offer generous peace terms, but they were non-negotiable. The old order was dead. A new one would rise in its place. The negotiations took place on a neutral station orbiting a binary star system, and led the human delegation, supported by representatives from dozens of formerly oppressed species. The aliens arrived expecting to bargain from weakness, hoping to preserve some fragment of their power. They were wrong. These are our terms, said, projecting them for all to see. The Galactic Council is dissolved. The Galactic Assembly takes its place, with equal representation for all species. All forced labor ends immediately. All occupied worlds receive the right to self-determination. All war criminals will face trial before an international tribunal. The representative tried to object. You cannot expect us to simply accept. We can, interrupted, his voice cold as space itself. And you will, because the alternative is total war and you know you'll lose. Your own people are rebelling against you. Your subject species have tasted freedom and will never accept chains again. You have one choice, adapt or die. The delegate hissed in anger. This is revenge disguised as justice. No, said, stepping forward. His presence shocked the alien delegates. This is justice, true justice. I have lived among humans. I have seen how they treat even their enemies. They offer you more mercy than you ever showed anyone. The negotiations stretched for weeks, but the outcome was never in doubt. The three empires, faced with complete collapse, accepted the terms. The Galactic Assembly was born. Then came the trials. In a massive court station constructed specifically for this purpose, the war criminals of the old regime faced judgment. Commanders who had ordered massacres, administrators who had run death camps, politicians who had profited from slavery, all stood before judges drawn from multiple species. Served as an advocate, not for the accused but for the process itself. She ensured that even the worst criminals received fair trials, that evidence was presented properly, that justice was not confused with vengeance. This is hard, she told one evening. Some of these beings did terrible things. Part of me wants to see them suffer. But you don't let it control you, said. That's what makes you better than them. Commander, the officer who had executed his brother, stood trial for crimes against sentient beings. The evidence was overwhelming. Attended every day of the trial, sitting in the gallery with a stone face. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, was sentenced to life imprisonment on a rehabilitation colony where he would work to rebuild what he had destroyed. As guards led him away, he paused and looked at. I cannot undo what I did, said, but I will spend the rest of my life trying to understand why it was wrong. Said nothing. There was nothing to say. His brother was still dead, but at least now there was justice. 10 years passed. The galaxy entered what historians would call the Golden Reconstruction. Technologies, once hoarded by humanity as military secrets, were shared freely with all species. Advances in medicine, engineering, and agriculture lifted billions out of poverty. The species that had once fought each other now worked together on projects that benefited everyone. And retired from military service and founded the Galactic Peace Corps, an organization dedicated to preventing future conflicts through diplomacy and mutual understanding. Minyu became the first Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Force, but it was a very different military than the one that had terrorized the galaxy before. Its mission was protection, not conquest. Its funding came from voluntary contributions, not forced tribute. Its command structure was accountable to the Assembly, not to any single species. And Sara built the Galactic Communications Network, ensuring that no species could be isolated or silenced again. Information flowed freely across the stars, making tyranny nearly impossible to establish. Founded the Institute for Understanding, where beings from all cultures could learn about each other. The first graduating class included students from 47 different species, including several young who wanted to learn from the beings their parents had oppressed. Continued her medical work, now training doctors from across the galaxy in techniques that emphasized compassion as much as competence. The idea that healing was about more than just fixing bodies, that it required understanding the whole being, revolutionized galactic medicine. Admiral retired at last, satisfied that humanity had achieved something remarkable. Before stepping down, he gave one final speech to the Assembly. "We did not win this war because we were stronger. We won because we refused to become like our oppressors. We won because we believed in something better. That belief, that hope, is our true strength. Guard it carefully. The moment you lose it, you become what we fought against." Captain, now Admiral, took his place, but he too would eventually step aside, making way for younger leaders from multiple species. The Assembly was designed so that no one person, no one species, could dominate it for long. On the anniversary of the Battle of Mars, visited a memorial built in orbit around the Red Planet. It listed the names of everyone who had died in the Liberation Wars, human and alien alike. His brother's name was there, carved in stone that would outlast civilizations. "We did it," whispered. "We didn't just survive, we changed everything." A small hand tugged at his uniform. He looked down to see a child, her skin a pale blue that marked her as half human. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. "Are you Admiral?" she asked shyly. "I am. My teacher says you saved the galaxy." Knelt down to her level. "Not me alone. Many people fought for freedom. Many people sacrificed. Some of them are listed here." He gestured to the memorial. "They're the real heroes. My daddy says that before the war, people like me couldn't exist, and humans couldn't be friends." "Your daddy is right. Things were different then." "I'm glad they changed," the little girl said. Then she hugged him and ran off to rejoin her parents, one human, one both smiling. Stood slowly, watching her go. Around him, the memorial stood silent against the stars. Mars glowed red below, a reminder of the battle that had changed everything. But the real victory wasn't military. It was the little girl who could exist in a galaxy that had once been divided by hate and fear. The galactic powers had ruled with arrogance, believing their superiority was eternal. They had crushed dissent and mocked the weak. They had thought their technology made them invincible, and their ancient lineage gave them the right to dominate. But they had forgotten something crucial. True strength doesn't come from weapons or age or control. It comes from principles worth fighting for, from refusing to accept injustice, from the courage to stay human even in the darkest times. Humanity had struck back not with superior technology but with superior ideals. And in doing so, they had proven that the meek could indeed inherit the stars, not through conquest, but through the simple act of refusing to kneel. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly the point.